What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we're chatting with Joe Mullinax from Locked On Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies are riding a 9-game winning streak behind some insane play from Ja Morant. But are they getting the respect that they deserve as true title contenders? Talk about that, but first, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Next game, how about Luka Doncic to score more than 26.5 points? What about LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds? How about Giannis Antetokounmpo to have less than 6.5 assists? And what about Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 three-pointers made? So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college, you name it, they've got you covered over at Prize Picks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They offer safe and very, very fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is Joe Mullinax from Locked On Grizzlies. You can follow wherever you listen to your podcast, including YouTube. Just search Locked On Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies, Joe, 29-13 at the time of this recording, tied for the number 1 spot in the Western Conference, riding a 9-game winning streak during which Ja Morant is averaging 28.9 points per contest, including quite possibly the dunk of the year. Joe, help me out here. First, before we dive into anything else Memphis Grizzlies related, what was your reaction to that insane poster by Ja against the Grizzlies? Or sorry, against the Pacers. I apologize.
Yeah, well, it's just so awe-inspiring. It defies logic. So I don't fault you at all for your flub there. I was out to dinner with my wife, so I'm going to be honest. I had to catch that game on delay. But my phone started buzzing, as your phone tends to do when you get messages and notifications. And, they're like, you got to see it. I was like, what are these people talking about? And, the NBA account looked like a fan account, like, oh my God, the dunk of the year. And you watch it and it's pretty remarkable. And this is going to sound very snobbish of me, and I try not to do that as someone that follows the Memphis Grizzlies as long as I have over a decade now doing this kind of work. I'm not surprised anymore. Like this dude would have done this to Kevin Love or other guys that he's tried to dunk on and he's just missed. The amazing is no longer shocking. It's amazing to watch what he has done in such a short time period with his NBA career. He is must-see TV every time he steps on the court. Luka Doncic is having a better season. I'm not going to argue MVP and all that sort of stuff. You can argue for maybe a few other guys in front of Ja in that way. He's in the top 10 players in the National Basketball Association comfortably. The numbers back it up as you outlined. And when it comes to like wanting to watch somebody play, no offense to anybody else, I don't know how you put anybody other than Ja Morant number 1 because of what he did to the Indiana Pacers and the fact he could do it against anyone at any given time.
He really is such an electric, just like, I don't know, gravity defying guy. Like it feels like every single night he steps on the floor, you see another like highlight reel moment or something that he just puts together. And I mean, the crazy part is he makes it look easy when he goes out there and does those things. And then the whole, like his little, like, as he fell back into the arms of Steven Adams after the dunk was just the cherry on top of that. But when you look at Ja compared to some of these other top guys, right? The guys whose names you associate with the MVP conversation, Luka Doncic, Giannis, Jokic, obviously, these other names. I mean, does it feel like Ja gets maybe, I don't want to say gets the respect that he deserves, but do you feel like people kind of do associate him with those other names? Or do you think there's maybe a separation in those tiers where they've got like those guys and then Ja like one cut below?
My co-host at Locked On Grizzlies, Michael Cole, and I talked about this on a recent episode. The idea that Ja might be not necessarily underappreciated, I don't think that's fair to say at this stage, But the All-Star vote and how far ahead Steph Curry and Luka Doncic are ahead of Ja Morant. Why is that? Because of everything that we just talked about. And again, Luka is having a remarkable season. Steph, before he got hurt, and obviously he just recently returned, having a fantastic season. I'm not in the business of saying Ja is better than those two guys, because I think that's a losing argument for everyone when you try to have that debate. I think they're the three, in my opinion, clearly best point guards in the National Basketball Association. All three of them can play. There should probably be three backcourt spots, but that's maybe a topic for another episode. I think that it's understandable to not include him among the Jokic's of the world and others, but it's important to understand just how important Morant is to these Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson Jr., extremely valuable, best two-way player on the team, although Morant had a highlight block in that game that we also aren't talking about, the way he essentially his head was above the rim blocking that shot, but I digress. Jaren's the best two-way player on the team. Desmond Bane is rounding back into near all-star form as an offensive weapon himself. Ja Morant is the straw that stirs the drink, and whether it's the "we're fine in the West" comment that maybe ruffles some feathers, I think he's very unapologetically himself. Not that other guys aren't that, but he is very audacious, both in terms of the way he plays the game and off the floor. His personality is very unapologetically him, and I think that perhaps folks don't appreciate that as much as the other players that maybe don't talk in that way. So credit to Morant, he backs up his talk, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be beloved in NBA circles when it comes to these year-end awards.
I would just love to see like a full just Ja Morant embrace like the villainous villain arc. Like it would be great. It would be high level entertainment to see for sure.
Unfortunately, you can't do that when you're giving away Ja ones to kids.
Right? He's too likable.
Right. He just talked a lot of trash, but so do the rest of the Grizzlies.
There we go. You mentioned Jaren Jackson Jr. there, his being the best, the two-way force for this Grizzlies team. There was a lot of speculation on just, the Grizzlies kind of maybe a bit of a slow start on the defensive side of things to the season. They were missing Jaren Jackson Jr., his impact. What have you seen since he's been able to return to the court and just his overall impact and where he should shake out as far as just potential DPOY award is concerned this year? Because when I look at the list, I think this year might be a bit of a weaker year for DPOY players, but I immediately think Jaren Jackson Jr.'s got to be in that conversation.
He's an eater of worlds is what he is. And as impressive as Ja Morant is dunking the basketball, and obviously you as a host here on our network, you appreciate good basketball. Watch Jaren Jackson Jr. play defense, and you will see that he is very clearly the defensive player of the year. No offense to Claxton and Brooklyn. I know he's having a great season. Obviously, Brook Lopez and the Bucks are a very strong defensive team, and Lopez is kind of having, again, I'm an old hat Grizzlies guy. Lopez is kind of having a Marc Gasol-esque defensive player of the year season when Gasol won it almost a decade ago now. I think that Jaren Jackson Jr. is very clearly the best defensive player in the National Basketball Association. The Grizzlies defense is 8 points better when he's on the floor per cleaning the glass. He is just phenomenal in terms of block percentage. There's nobody really close to him. He was hovering around 6% the last I looked, which is just an ungodly number. He is just a dominant force in terms of how he impacts the game. He plays passing lanes. He has elite ability to get up off the ground after a first leap. So he times a block with his left hand on one end, and the ball gets recovered by an opponent on the other side, and then he blocks it with the opposite hand, with his right hand. He's done that multiple times, and he is just really making it difficult for teams to do anything at and around the rim. And he's doing it non-traditionally because he has Steven Adams by his side. He's able to be more of that help weak side defender that can be that center fielder that really puts himself in position to block those shots. Steven Adams and Dillon Brooks, of course, as well. The Grizzlies are a pretty solid defensive team in their own right, not just because of Jaren. But as you alluded to, Jaren Jackson Jr. returns and the team takes off. So as biased as I am about Dillon Brooks and Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson Jr., just like Ja is the straw that stirs the drink offensively, Jaren Jackson Jr. is their defensive weapon. They don't have him out there. They're not the same team, and they're not a title contender if Jaren isn't playing the defense that he is right now.
What a way to put it. Yeah, the Grizzlies they're a pretty good defensive team. What a way to undersell it. The Grizzlies are a fantastic defensive team, but
I think they're number one in the NBA. Is that good, Jackson?
That might be pretty good, Joe. Might be pretty good.
Okay.
Look, and we could talk about Ja being the guy that stirs the drink offensively. We could talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. and his impact and how he anchors the defense for the Grizzlies. But the architect of it all, right? The guy who pulls all the strings, puts it all together. Head coach Taylor Jenkins. I mean, at this point, how strong of a case does he have, or should he have, for Coach of the Year at this point?
How much time do you have? How much time do I have? I thank you.
You got all the time in the world that you want, Joe.
So appreciative of you, Jackson, for bringing this up, because I'm going to go on a mini rant here. I know how we do our segments.
Get up on your soapbox. You got this.
I can't believe that this man did not get a single vote in the NBA midseason media report. And DeMichael Cole was one of the voters. My partner on Locked On Grizzlies was one of the voters. So you better believe on a recent episode, I chewed it out. Like, how does this dude not have a single vote? They weren't healthy until Christmas. When Jaren was out, Desmond was in. And then as soon as Jaren comes back, Desmond is out. They are younger in their rotation. Danny Green hasn't played a single second. They took a team that was one of the youngest in the NBA last year and got younger. And yet here we are, once again talking about the Memphis Grizzlies as one of the best teams in the NBA, and nobody respects Taylor Jenkins. It's infuriating. The Brooklyn Nets have multiple Hall of Famers. The Boston Celtics likely have multiple Hall of Famers. Nikola Jokic might be the best big man in the history of the NBA. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying he might be if you look at the numbers and the way, if he's a 3-time MVP award winner. What do the Grizzlies have? They have a 23-year-old Ja Morant, a 23-year-old Jaren Jackson Jr., a 20-some, 24, 25 Desmond Bane. They are one of the youngest teams in the NBA, and all they do is win. Acknowledge Taylor Jenkins, you cowards. Every single one of you watching this, listening to this, I'm looking right at you through your spirit and your soul. Acknowledge Taylor Jenkins. He's the coach of the year, whether you like it or not. I'm done.
Oh wow! I'm glad I gave you the chance to bring that to just shed some light on that situation, Joe. Now
I feel lighter.
Was that a little cathartic for you?
It was.
Now I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Asked you about Ja, and we talked a little bit about MVP. Asked you about Jaren Jackson Jr. We talked a little bit about DPOY, and then to keep things rolling, we talked about Coach of the Year for Taylor Jenkins. If you could only pick one award for the Grizzlies to walk away with this season, who would you pick?
Ironically, I just went on that rant, and I'm not going to say Taylor Jenkins. If I had to pick one, in terms of who I think truly deserves it, again, I can't argue against Luka Doncic and what he's doing in Dallas. I can't argue what Steph was doing before he got hurt. I try to be unbiased in my Grizzlies-dom. Ja is an excellent player. I don't know that he has put together a better season than those guys. And you mentioned Jokic. He's phenomenal. He's an all-NBA guy. I think Ja is clearly. Not sure he's the MVP. Taylor Jenkins should be the coach of the year, but I'm not going to pick a coach over a player. Jaren Jackson Jr. should be the defensive player of the year. I've watched a lot of NBA basketball. I have rarely seen someone dominate a game, be able to defend 1 through 5, and be 6'11", 240 some pounds. The only other guy I've seen do that is Giannis. That's the only other player that is capable of doing what Jaren Jackson Jr. is currently doing in the NBA. He switches onto a perimeter player, he's fine. He's defending a big on the block, he's fine. He's playing weak side defense. He's there out on the perimeter doing a switch. He's running through a screen. He's hedging. He's, playing all sorts of drop defense. He is, like I said earlier, the eater of worlds. No matter what you try to do offensively, he's not going to let you do it. His weakness is fouling. That's still an issue in his game. He had a slow stretch when they were 1-4 around the holidays, where he got in foul trouble again. And that was one of the major reasons they had issues, was he was in foul trouble. But he's gotten right in that way. And like I said, no disrespect to Claxton. There's plenty of good Bridges in Phoenix and Smart in Boston, obviously, the reigning winner. Jaren Jackson Jr. is the best defensive player in the NBA, and it would be a shame if he doesn't win that award.
Can the Memphis Grizzlies continue their dominance this season? What awards will they walk away with by season's end? Of course, you're going to have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Grizzlies. Joe, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thank you for having me. Sorry for yelling at your listeners.